We are on to a new show, in a new week, in a new time, in a new era, in a new life, in everything new. None of that's true. Yeah, it is true. Time, man, always forward. Gotta get up, gotta get going, gotta keep doing. I drove home from the awesome exotic car driving experience, and my freaking brake pad started squeaking. God. In my 2002 Toyota 4Runner with 180,000 miles. I think I bought it with 120,000, 118, 23, something like that. The Toyota 4Runner and Toyotas in general, right up until their final manufacture on the Tokyo line changed. And I had a family friend, Mike McPhail, fill me in on these babies. And I had always owned foreign cars. It's unfortunate, man. American cars have and always will be shit, for the most part. Pickup trucks, Ford, Chevy, the good vehicles. We made the greatest vehicles in history, and then we just pumped out crap. And it was unfortunate, and they were crap for a long time. And they're back to decent cars, and most are no longer assembled overseas. They're assembled in this country. Though, many of the parts are manufactured overseas. Well, the 2002 Toyotas, at least for the 4Runner, were the last car assembled off the Tokyo line. So you had the Tokyo assembly plants with the mad Japanese putting perfect vehicles together, on par with German vehicles that have almost zero fault, zero tolerance. I mean, the distances for how the car's assembled and manufactured, any error are minimal. From all of the static parts to any of the working parts, the dynamic parts, like the motor and all that, which is, home of the piece. But awesome vehicles. The Japanese built awesome vehicles. We all experienced the Japanese boom. With the Toyotas, the Supra, and all the little cars into what they are now. And the same with Honda. Fabulous vehicles. And for the most part, always been reliable. So I've pretty much owned foreign-made cars, which is a fucking disappointment. Cadillac always made good cars, but they're a high-end brand, luxury vehicle. I'm never going to buy a Cadillac. Though I had friends that always would purchase that type of car because they were in sales, and it showed how successful they were and how elegant and stylish they were. And they're good cars, don't get me wrong. I'd own a Cadillac, and the new ones, the speedy, sporty ones, good cars, but And that, what is that engine? I can't even remember. I was going to say I-Force, that crazy Toyota engine. But the Cadillac, whatever the hell it is, 100,000 mile engine. You don't need a tune-up, oil change. Pretty cool. But, yeah, so I bought the 4Runner, the 2002 4Runner, last off the Japanese line. Awesome vehicle. And I just had much of the guts replaced. Not the guts, but the superficial components of the motor, such as gaskets and plugs and points. Doesn't have points, it's got, So whatever, I had all that replaced, and at Munson's Garage, shout out to Munson's Garage down in West Palm. And the dude was like, listen man, if you ever want to get rid of this, and I was like, look, stop right there. This car's gonna go to the kid or whatever. He said, there's no wear on the motor. No wear. After 180,000 miles. There's no burning or charring from where it fires. There's built just exceptionally. But I'm driving home and the brakes start squeaking. So I guess I gotta go to Tires Plus and get the brakes done. But man, for a decade now, maybe more, I don't know. I haven't had a car payment. And these people with car payments, and these people with luxury car payments, and these people who lease a little smarter. How foolish are you for your house on wheels, your showy luxury vehicle. And down here, everybody's got them. And it's funny, just drove the Ferrari, had the Porsche sitting there with the Lamborghini. And then Tracy and I went and ate at Buffalo Wild Wings, and gosh darned if we didn't drive by the Lamborghini and the Ferrari dealership. And I guess that's just excess, which in my lifetime, I will never own. I might buy a Porsche if I ever had the money and had a fun car and it had no real purpose other than to look good and go fast. But exotic sports cars just really have no purpose. You can't get groceries, you can't put your dog in there, you can't carry your golf clubs. You know what I mean? You can't really go fast on the Florida roads. On the thruway you probably can go 100 bazillion miles an hour. I've done that before. I've done that on the motorcycles. I don't think I've done it in a car where I've opened it up, took the motorcycles up to like Bandamere and did the quarter mile. Pretty awesome. But even wide open, like driving through Las Vegas, if you haven't driven through the Midwest and the southern Midwest, just hundreds of miles of open road with nothing around. You know, like the movies. And you can get that machine going as fast as you want with no reference point, like a building or a street sign or a light, you know, a stoplight or anything. So you're going 130 or whatever, and all you feel is the wind. It feels a little harder to stick on the machine. Very strange. And I think it's the same way in a car, you know? It's when you experience the force and the turning and stuff like that, actual manipulation of that vehicle. And then for like the Porsche, my first wife Karen's father showed me this, and I can't remember what it's called. The Germans manufacture the vehicles with an overdrive, overbrake. I don't recall what it was, but he had, I think, a 911, maybe Carrera, turbo, something. And you strap into the pilot seat. It didn't have the 5-point harness on it, but it had, and maybe not, maybe it just had the 2-point, you know, the shoulder and then the lap belt that combined. And we were going down a country road and he said, watch this. Joe was a motorhead. Joe Glebe, shout out to Joe Glebe, loved the exotic cars. Italian, German, whatever. And could drive them too. Could work on them, restore them, and drive them. Great skills. Great military individual. Served our country well. Did well in life. And he's an awesome dude. And Karen shows those traits. And we went into a turn, and the Germans manufactured it that way, so that, and I can't recall the braking, the acceleration, the steering, but it felt like I got sucked down and then spun sideways, like at 90 degrees. And that was unbelievable. And it completely goes against what you would perceive as physics and what your body perceives as safety. And so you have to learn it. Much like a lot of machines, right? They're manufactured for a different purpose, so it goes against what we naturally feel. But when I did that, we were traveling straight, and then we went and turned. And it felt like on a dime, that on rails, like a train, that 90-degree. And you can't do that in a normal car, and you'll never experience that in a normal car. A normal car has the, suspension springs and stuff, and it turns and it yaws and it, these things are stiff, and it went, it's crazy. And they're made to do that. They're sports cars, they're performance cars, which is why they give a gas guzzler tax on the thing when you buy it, because it's a luxury exotic sports car and all that shit. And I hadn't experienced that before. And on the motorcycle, there are similar traits of physics that you have to learn for steering at speed, right? Things work in a certain manner, but they really work in a certain manner at velocity, at speed, acceleration or velocity. Because that's when that force is in play, and there's so much more consequence if you fuck up, right? If you're going fast and you fuck up, God love you. That's why you have the safety harness. But if you don't fuck up and the vehicle performs the way it's supposed to, you're like, holy shit. And that Porsche did that. And I didn't experience that with the Ferrari yesterday. And I watched David in the Ferrari, and that car would actually lean. You could see it, even though it may have had a racing suspension or whatever, a street race, you could see it dive. It would dive in the corners as the tires ground. So, the Lamborghini, no. It was that high off the ground. It looked like a wedge right to the ground. And that thing, moved like you'd expect, which would have been cool to drive. However, the guy there told me that the Lambos, you have to rest. Being such a high performance geared vehicle, you can't just drive it and drive it. You have to park it, let it cool down, let it rest. It's acceleration, it's performance, right? As everything, which to me sounds like it's heat associated. As you drive that thing and it becomes hotter and hotter in the motor, in the suspension, in the steering, in the braking, all those dynamics. Yeah, so Ocasio-Cortez is calling for the removal of the institutionalized Democrats. She's shaking it up. Radical. And I think it's needed. I think these changes are needed, man. And I know many people will oppose any of these views. And I think a lot of people, we were doing well and we're moving along and it's good. Bullshit. If you believe that, you're old or you're uninformed. If you think our government, under Clinton, under Bush's, under Obama, was plugging along and we were doing well, you're fucking dreaming. Yeah, you're on lewds. We were running up debt. We were diminishing services provided, though the cost and the staffing of those services were ballooning and have ballooned. The government has become massive, swollen, lazy, excessive, wasteful. Dude, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. All these millionaire senators and governors, all these idiotic fucking institutions to manage every aspect of everything, instead of putting that burden on the people and having a government that mentors, enforces, and enriches those people by allowing them their basic freedoms, by allowing them safety and peace with a military, with whatever, not by providing them free medical care, free food, free education, free cigarettes, free everything, free, I gotta get my nails done, free, the government. Fuck that, you morons. That's not the purpose of any government. I've said this before. You believe that, go live in Russia. Russia will take care of you. They will. But they'll tell you what your fucking job is. They'll tell you where you live. They'll tell you how you live. They'll tell you how you act. They'll tell you how many fucking kids you can have, what your income level is, where you can go, where you can't go, who you can talk to, when you can talk to them. Yeah, that's socialism. Enjoy it. With the snowman. You can go live in Moscow with Snowden, right? Because he wanted to leak info. What a mistake. His 15 seconds, I feel bad for that dude. Because he was compelled, right? With his conscience. But, that didn't pan out well. But, he was right. There's some sneaky shit going on in this fucking country. And there always has been. But it's strange. Under Trump, it's not so sneaky. It's sort of out in the open. He's not the sneakiest. The CIA just said the Crown Prince was directly responsible for the termination of Khashoggi. Yet, Saudi Arabia plays a pivotal role in our Mid-East strategies. Ton of it. Our relations with Iran, our relations with Palestine, our relations with, on oil. Dude, so when, our government says the Crown Prince just smoked some journalists and pretty much, is a despot or a maniacal dictator who's trying to control, free speech and the press and all that shit, it's hard to say we're aligned with them. Those are the things that occur in the world. And, in past cabinets and presidencies, they did that secretively behind closed doors, very quietly, and we weren't privy to it. But boy, it all seems to be out in the open now, for the most part. And then you got the CIA saying one thing and the president saying something else. No. I don't think so. I think the Crown Prince and Saudi are great partners here. They're great allies. It's a great relationship with them. We really love their oil and all the money they have. Yeah, great job. Don't know. Goods and bads and everything. I'm sure the Saudi prince was directly responsible. And I think some way maybe Trump was responsible, right? Because he seems to smash the media. And so they sent the hit squad, took care of that turd. And from what I heard, they told him he would show up at the consulate and be totally safe. Man, he wasn't safe. They smoked that fool. But he was old, so he got his years in. So that's fucking weird, right? All that business going on. And what else is new? As I said, Apple's cutting the production of their iPhone models. Yeah, I don't know. And this falls in line with Goldman saying, hey, things might slow down. You better check it out. I bet you this holiday season has record spending. And then next year there's a correction. Don't know how big. Don't know what's going to happen. But boy, it might be the doom and gloom we've seen in the past. And maybe not. Maybe it'll be in 2020. Maybe it won't occur. I hope it doesn't occur. Because that's a lot of people get destroyed. Like those fires have done out in California. In a very short period of time, financially, people just get smoked. And that sucks. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's natural. It's part of the cycle, but it's still unfortunate. What else is going on? They had a thing out here about Kevin Spacey. And I don't know. He was part of this hashtag Me Too. But of course, on the lesbian, gay, bi, trans side, LGBTQ, because he's a open homosexual and has been, and is also, and you get mixed stories where he was pretty much a tyrant on a number of sets. Though other people said he was awesome and it was the greatest thing working with him, right? That's just natural. But he was doing Netflix or whatever where he was the president or whatever his show was, and man, they canceled that and he's disappeared. Which I think is probably smart. Probably lost his job, jumped on his private jet and flew off to his island in Bali or wherever, because all these assholes own islands now. Hang out there for about a year. Because he's smart, dude. He seems to be, from all of his roles, from the way he operates, he's an above average intellect. And any of the lawsuits, the fucking Harvey Weinstein, all this crap, these religious things, the freedoms in our country, the DACA children, all these immigrants, the immigration policy, your sex questions, the race questions, the Black Lives Matter, the this, the that. He got on a plane, flew out of the private wing, whatever it is, the gate, which they have out there in LA now. They have a private elite gate for a specific income level and above for your travel. If you have your jet out there, I've heard individuals talking about it, where you roll up to the airport and your car is valeted and you walk in and they give you your beverage and it's like you're in a giant, Delta Sky Miles elite black, Centurion card club. You walk around, there's movies playing, you can pick up, sushi and food along the way. I don't know what it is, but there's no lines, there's no security, or whatever it is, it's all highly streamlined, the most efficient. So you got your TSA pre-pass or whatever, all that shit. You walk out to your jet, you don't worry about your bags, you don't worry about nothing, and you fly away. In fucking LA. You twats. Good to be king, man. It's good to be king. And I'm sure he did that. Jumped on his jet and flew to his island in Bali or somewhere. Wherever the hell space he's got an island, because that dude had tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. And he'll hang out there. And get Tony Robbins and his 19 friends to come and do a motivational speaking thing. They'll do some fire walking. Burn a couple feet. Ah, they'll chant. Ah, they'll excise all the demons. And then Spacey will come back. I'm cleaner. I'm whole. I saw the light. I saw the errors of my ways. And really, there were no errors. All you jealous bitches, you're just bitching at me. Fuck you. I'm back. Because that's what they do. Dude, if you go see Boy Erased, which is a brutal film. I don't know if I talked about this earlier on this cast or other. But you try to indoctrinate. You try to change someone, right? And in that one, I don't want to ruin it, but it's known. They send homosexuals to this, church camp, whatever it is, where they're, and this is not uncommon, right? It can be anything. It can be religious. It can be sexual in nature. Any belief. Brainwashing's brainwashing, man. It's been going on forever. Fucking people in charge and the people that follow. That's it. Right? And don't drink the Kool-Aid. I'll drink the Kool-Aid. It's delicious Kool-Aid. The grape. Oh, yes. Children, we'll meet in the hereafter. We'll meet at Heaven's Gate. Yeah, fuck, what? Somebody stabbed that dude in the head. Shut up. What the hell are you doing? Fuck, the weakness of the mind. So, yeah, that's what everybody does. And then they're healed and they're clean and they need to be welcomed back. And I guess like Mel Gibson, back at it, doing movies again. Took a while, because he screamed at the Jews. Fucking Jews! Ah, corner this industry, you're rotten people. Mel, what are you doing? Quit drinking, getting bombed, yelling at the cops when they pull you over, because you married some 22-year-old Russian. Weird story. Controversial story. Expected story. Wanted to bring it up, raise it to awareness and discussion. The Pope, and I don't know who follows Christianity, Catholicism anymore. Pope Francis, and I think he's Argentinian or whatnot, South American Pope. The most recently elected Pope has stated that wealthy few feast on what belongs to all. And I don't know. I don't immediately recall messages like that from prior popes. I'm sure they did. As they traveled the world, right? And as they celebrated Mother Teresa or whomever. The selfless people that only give, caregivers. But a few notable statements from the Pope in the Vatican, championing the cause of the poor. On Saturday, Pope Francis lamented that wealthy few enjoy what injustice belongs to all, and said Christians cannot remain indifferent to the growing cries of the exploited and the indigent, including migrants. Ties into Trump. Francis invited about 6,000 poor people, as well as some of the volunteers who helped them to the splendor of St. Peter's Basilica. He welcomed 6,000 poor into his home, where he celebrated Mass on the day of the Catholic Church dedicated to the needy, and he sat down with 1,500 of the indigent for a lunch of lasagna, chicken, mashed potatoes, and tiramisu in a Vatican auditorium. In his homily, he stated, "We Christians cannot stand with arms folded in indifference or with arms outstretched in helplessness about those in need." He cited the stifled cry of the unborn, of starving children, of young people more used to the explosion of bombs than happy shouts at the playground. He also drew attention to the plight of abandoned elderly, the friendless, and the cry of all those forced to flee their homes and native land for an uncertain future. It is the cry of entire peoples, deprived even of the great natural resources at their disposal. Francis said the poor were weeping while the wealthy few feast on what? Injustice belongs to all. Injustice is the perverse root of poverty. The cry of the poor daily becomes stronger, but every day heard less. That cry is drowned out by the din of the rich few who grow ever fewer and more rich, the pontiff said. Last week, doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers volunteered their time to offer medical assistance to the homeless and other need from morning till night in St. Peter's Square. The initiative reflects the Francis's determination that the Vatican promote by way of example priorities for rank and file faithful. He said during the Mass, "It is important for all of us to live our faith in contact with those in need." Later in remarks to pilgrims and tourists in St. Peter's Square, he spoke of the futility of making riches one's goal. He noted that at the end of each life, the power of money and of economic means with which we presume with presumptuousness to buy everything and everyone won't be able to be used any more. You're dead and you can't take it with you. I don't know. All pretty powerful messages. Nothing new. Pretty commonsensical. This guy seems to be a bit more fundamental in just observations and statements. Ties God and Christian and love in, but more human. And he's done this with, his statements on sexuality, homosexuality, that he kissed a girl, his dating. Seems to be more of a down-to-earth head of the Catholic Church. I don't know. There's definite fact in everything he says. Some degree, some level. Reality. And that is the world. But I don't think that is any different than the world we've been in forever. We have the powerful and the powerless. Seems like some of those divisions are much wider. This box and the digital cameras and global media and pocket computers they seem to have made it, I don't know, more apparent, more visible. Or not. Maybe they, in some way, shape, or form, those tools have spread to the poor, the victims. Maybe? I don't know. Are we that radically different than we were 100 years ago? Last century was a tumultuous century. This century, a bit so far, 18 years. But that last century, lots of wars. Lots of big wars. And, Vietnam, not a big war. Big war. We killed a lot of people in that country. And they killed 60,000 of our people. Korea. A lot of injustices around the world. A lot of war around the world. South America, Europe, Central America, Russia, Russian territories. Asia, right? It seems like the Chinese and the Americans are the only, places where you, per se, don't have major conflict going on. And Russia, maybe. Yeah, but, we still have this quasi-terroristic thing going on here and there and all over Europe, London, all of your first world countries, your civilized nations. Internal strife, civil strife, international strife, religious strife, race strife. All that seems to be bubbling again. Don't know. Pretty big, pretty important and big ticket items for any fundamental discussion of what we are and our future and our country and our health and whatnot. And he hits on a lot of it, pretty generically, which is what the Pope does, but relatively truthfully. And there are, if you haven't traveled around the world and you're not sure, and it's pretty easy to do nowadays, you can jump on the computer and travel around. You can see a lot of the strife, second and third and worst world countries. The entire continent of Africa is in tough spots, including South Africa. There's a lot of squalor and injustice. And some of the places we're in the middle of it, I don't know, but I don't know if this was holiday. Well, it seems like it was one of the church days, one of the church holidays to give back to the needy, and I'm sure that will be echoed in the upcoming holidays of Thanksgiving and Christmas and Hanukkah and New Year's and all that jazz. And it should be. We are fortunate. We're blessed. Good God. But it's so easy to be caught up in this storm of noise where you don't see that, or you don't want to see that, or you don't care, or you don't know. But things to think about in our personal lives, and then in those around us, and then in our position in our community, and then in our position on the globe. All that. So, I wanted to bring that up. And then I wanted to finish out, with this little snippet, this little jewel. Apparently, Pearl Derrier, 29, from Denver, Colorado, is planning to hold the world's largest orgy by inviting 1,000 people. Her partners, boyfriend Dan Patrick, 35, and homemaker girlfriend Tommy Taylor, 30, are also happy for her to have casual liaisons with other people at orgies. This will be the most ambitious occasion yet for Pearl, who stopped counting her sexual partners when she hit 100 at the age of 21. Again, this is the son over there in our brethren abroad. on the island. Yeah, 1,000 people at a marathon sex party. World's largest orgy. It's a news item. I don't know if it's, fantastic or ridiculous or another thing just to note. This stuff always goes on. Sometimes it shows up in the news, sometimes it doesn't. Components. It clearly starts to fail in performance. It's built that explicitly and that precise. And he said, yeah, you park it for 5 minutes, you let it rest, and then it comes right back up. It starts ripping again. And I found that so odd that we build machines like that, right? That for a minute period are fucking bullets. They're rockets. But, you beat them up for a period, not that long, their ability. And then they're like, I'm not going to do what you're telling me to do. I'm tired. And it slows down. You park it, you let it cool down, you let it sit, it rests, boom. And we pay $500,000 for those. Weird. The cutting edge of performance. And I'm not used to that. But I gotta get the brakes done, so I gotta go to Tires Plus, and I printed out the coupon, $40 an axle off. I don't know what it's gonna cost, and I looked at doing them. A 2002 Toyota brake kit, $120 nowadays, right? Nothing to it. And I think that's with the 2 front discs, and no. I think it's more like $150, $160. The 2 front rotors and the 2 back drums with the shoes and then the pads. And I sit here, I got the gear, pop it up on the jack with the, I've got the, my brain, dude, my Alzheimer's, where I can slide it under there and put the lifts, to hold it up next to the jack. Excuse me. I've got those so that we could do completely safe. And then I started looking at bleeding it, and then I started thinking about, when I bought it at 120,000 miles, the brakes were pretty beat. I've had them check the brakes. They still had wear in the pads, and the rotors looked pretty tight as to what I was told. Weren't warping, weren't showing any divots or trenches or wear or anything like that, at least not extreme. And for the most part, the brakes have been fine until just now. Now that the grind and, like the jet taking off. So I gotta get them done, and then you gotta bleed them. And it's 15 years since these things probably were touched. I don't think the brakes were done, so now what am I gonna have to break off? What am I gonna have to de-rust? And that's lame, not doing that. Brakes are brakes, they're pretty simple. And I probably should, and save quite a bit of money, maybe $300-400 in labor. Fuck. And Travis has to get picked up, and Jeffrey's got to go to work and all that crap, so it's going to be an inconvenience, especially if I order parts. I don't want to drive it around, it's loud. I'm going to drive it to the brake store, Tires Plus or whatever, and say, fix it. I guess. So, we'll get that done. But man, I've been blessed with the vehicles because I'm smart. I haven't had a problem, for decades with cars. Well, that's not completely true, but no problems with, the cost and the maintenance. And this thing's good. It's leaking a little oil again, which I thought I took care of when I replaced some of the gaskets, when I had the gaskets replaced in the full tune-up. Since I bought the head gasket and all that. But it's still leaking a little on the driveway. But it's got 180,000 miles. Probably could fix it. We'll have to look. But that's where that's at. We'll work on the car. Comes up once in a while. Car work. There's just a ton going on in the news. the Florida votes are done. They did a hand vote because the machine's overheated down here. And everybody that won. Gillum's lost, and Ron DeSantis won. Scott won, and the old man lost. So the two Republicans are in. And the gal in Alabama, she hasn't conceded, but she's clearly lost. She's going to drag this on. She would have been the first black congressman, I think, in the House. Governor. Yeah, she lost. But she's not going to concede. She's not going to admit it. Okay. So it looks like the counts, which is exactly what Booker said. I think Booker. And then the gal down in South Florida. I can't remember her name. Older gal with white hair. She finally quit for good. She retired. She said, I'm no longer going to be the tally counter, the vote administrator, which is good. And Booker's admitted they didn't have the people, they need new equipment, all the crap. And I'm sure they'll have problems in the future. This is a big, big state. And there's a lot to it, man. Easy peasy. It's so easy to criticize and critique. But they'd probably have busted their butts to get these counts in. So, lessons learned, hopefully we get better. And for all intents and purposes, it seems like the elections are finally complete. Yay! I think there were a couple changes, a couple senators, like in the Midwest, maybe Arizona, somewhere else, recount, and the Republicans lost. But, I don't know, whatever. I think there's still a Republican majority in the Senate and a Democratic majority in the House, just like was predicted and what happened for the most part. Election night. But yeah, a lot of stuff going on in the news. I read and heard some stuff on the Brexit pieces, which they had a deadline that came up, and May stuck with that deadline, and so they're still continuing. The deadline was related to the plan of how Brexit was going to be affected. If you don't know what Brexit is, it's England leaving the European community, or exiting. Britain's exit from the European community, Brexit. And the reason is because the European community is in Zurich, or the headquarter for the EU, and they are determining how this entire EU exists and functions. And one of the examples I heard was, how can some heads in Zurich determine the price of milk in London, right? And people were getting pissy about that. We're an island, and you guys have no concept of how we should be priced, what our products should be priced, what's fair, what's not fair. And so this has been in the mix for years now. Couple of years, where Britain was going to exit, and now they have a plan in place, and the plan, at least the high-level plan or statement by Miss May, the Prime Minister, has been presented. So it's continuing. And many have called for the termination of the British exit from the EU. But it seems like it's going. And I think there's goods and bads to it. And I think I heard for and opposing arguments. And one of the gals stated it likewise. She said, it feels like, in comparison to America, having a depression or being depressed as opposed to psychotic or a psychosis. And that comparison is the Trump agenda, the psychosis, the madness that's occurring in the media, in social media, in the policy and process of the government, in the cabinet management, and the personnel, and the people interaction. Almost like a psychotic circus show. And the feeling in England is more like stagnation, depression, lack of progress. It's not that psychosis yet. Or hopefully never. But that's the differing opinion or the differing political view or feeling. And it seems that makes sense. The British seem to be a little more stable when it comes to some of that stuff. And not to say that that's good. You know, stability can be stagnating. You sit and do nothing. Trump is a doer. That guy is just, he's always stirring a pot. So, don't know. But that's, was a pretty big decision. Or not decision, that was a pretty big due date, and it was met by Miss May. So that's continuing, and it wasn't really reported that much on. I don't think it was underreported, but it wasn't that big a news. And I don't know, there's a lot going on here. Maybe we just don't care what happens in England. I always have, but you know, not so much sometimes. It seems we report more on the fucking royals than we do the political or economic or social news. So that's in flight. Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is the bellwether of American finance. Somewhat good, somewhat bad. Many of the Goldman Sachs individuals who run that bank move fluidly into and out of government. They run the Fed. They run the top finance positions in our government. Incestuously, it's been that case for a while. It seems to be the premier financial institution in this country, the spear tip, right, of our financial aggression, strategy, growth, path, health, all that. And they've come out recently with a warning that says we're going to crawl to a massive economy slowdown next year. And when that happens, when their advisors start to make those statements, you need to start to listen. And it doesn't mean shit about dates or times. Or, you know how we all get, well, when? How bad? What's going to happen? These are high-level statements that simply mean from an institution that tracks the financial health, the economic health, and welfare of this nation. There are a number of troubling signs in interest rates, in stocks, equities, in bonds, in stock and bond volumes, in valuations of our private companies, in spends of our federal government, in our employment numbers, all those things that you hear and look at every month, every quarter, every year. They're lining up, and we better prepare for some type of economic slowdown. This falls in line with what we've talked about in the past, that true economic health in a booming economy is when you're producing, mass producing, massive goods. And because of the production of those goods, Jesus. Because of the production of those goods, everything in your economy is driven upward in a healthy manner. Jobs increase, spending increases, profits increase, surplus increases, surplus of goods, surplus of cash, savings increases. Like I said, spending increases. Everything is healthy in a booming economy. And it's driven by product sales and economic growth. That's not where we've been. We haven't, maybe snippets of it, that's not what we've been for a long time. Because we've outsourced the vast majority of whatever we've produced. We've moved it out of our country to cheaper labor, to far lands where you can produce those goods, and we don't worry about the toxic after products. The waste, right? We don't worry about the union labor, the 10, 15. Bernie Sanders is coming out now with, maybe it's Walmart? I think it's Walmart. He's trying to trigger a $15 minimum wage. Fucking Bernie Sanders. Socialism doesn't work. The minimum wage is driven by the market. The market's driven by signals of our economy, measures of our output. You can scream and yell that we're underpaid, we can't live I can't buy my cigarettes, my press-on nails, getting my nails done every week, getting my hair done, going out and, renting my movies on Netflix, buying my beer or eating my fast food, doing whatever. Can't afford that anymore. Yeah, well, especially on my EBT card. What? I mean, it's ludicrous, the shit that we've come up with. And Bernie Sanders is saying a $15 minimum wage at Walmart. Need it! $15 for a minimum wage to stand at a checkout counter with an electric scanner, interface with the customer, beep their products, load them into a turnstile bag loader, they possibly help, and then they put them in a cart and leave. $15 an hour? For that? Bernie, what fucking world are you in? You living with the Kardashians? Dude, I know you want your iPhone. I know you want all your constituents to have their iPhones. All those people, my constituents voted for me. They need to have a higher quality of living. No, they don't. If they want a higher quality of living, they'll pursue a better, more marketable, highly skilled job that has training tied to it, where whatever they're performing is paid a higher wage. You can't give everybody free shit. Doesn't fucking work, man. Because the free shit comes from somebody. Your fake ass printing money in your Federal Reserve or taking it out of our pockets that are doing the work. Don't know. Whatever. Good job, Bernie. Damn, up here in Maine, Bernie Sanders. Fucking, and this Ocasio-Cortez? She went in front of, dude, it's crazy. She's a radical. She went in front of one of the Democratic lobbying parties that had something like 700 individuals in it. Didn't read the article that closely, saw some headlines. And she said, it is our job to get rid of these institutionalized Democrats. We need younger, hungrier, smarter, more aggressive, and more radical Democrats to come in and take these positions. So, smart girl growing up in the city, she rolled into Congress and made complaints that they thought she was one of the interns. That lady's gonna shake. She's gonna rock the boat, man. Pardon me. Who just took you for half your $1 billion because you're stupid. You had a kid with her. What are you doing? Well, I haven't fallen into that trap. Happens to the best of us. And poor Mel Gibson, he had it too. But he's back. He's back in Hollywood. So I'm sure we'll see Kevin Spacey sometime in the future. creep out of the fucking crack like the cockroach that he is. 'Cause they all are. But he's a brilliant actor. He's a brilliant dude. But apparently there are lots of stories of how he preyed on people. Which it seems like they all do. They're the greatest. I know I am. Come with me into the back room. Slick Willie. What do you do? Facebook is getting bombed. Eeks. And now they're stating that Zuckerberg is aggressive and he's got a lot of attitude like he didn't. Didn't you ever watch Social Network? Yeah. I've seen the Zuck speak a few times. I think he's got classic genius traits where he's got a brilliant mind. However, he has components that clearly are lacking in the social side. Not developed, doesn't need them, works well in code, works well in logic and fact, doesn't exhibit a lot of emotion. When you see Zuckerberg smile, it's that weird smile. Right? There's no deep-seated nerve connection from here to here. I don't know. But yeah, Facebook keeps dropping. They continue to get a bad rap over these fake accounts and fake news and all this shit. And now they're stating that his aggressive style is starting to alienate, and he's yelling at Sheryl Sandberg, who really is, she's the fluidity in the face. She's a genius. He putting her in there shows his genius, shows that he knows his limitations. I know what I am and I know what I'm not, and I'm not her and I'm not that. But man, she's awesome. Put her in. And she's been that brand, right? She's been the voice, she's been the emotion, she's been the care, concern, the fact, the listening. That ain't Zuck. Whatever, dude. I built Facebook. Everything else, get the fuck out. So, I don't know where that's going to go, but we'll have to see. And as usual, you know, well, Facebook causes depression. Cell phones cause depression. Social media, where it's a screen and text and emojis and a live stream and video, but not real people, causes depression. Been saying this, man. When you stop interfacing with humans in a personal manner, face to face, human to human, shit's changing. Don't know where it's going. Those are basic skills. Those are basic animal skills that we've developed over millions of years. How to interface, exist, live with, partner with, have relationship with, have offspring with another human, male or female. And clearly in these times, our devices are allowing us to remove that. I'm managing and interfacing and talking with all of you. No, you're not. Talking to a fucking box. Bunch of zeros and ones that you pump up on some stupid screen. Oh no, every day I'm talking to people. No, you're not. You're not, man. And that'll never be replaced. Human interaction can never be replaced. At least at the level that we have here. Can't replace that. There's something fundamentally innate and valuable from that. And whatever we're evolving into or modifying into, it's going to be weird to see where it goes, especially with all this other shit. Artificial intelligence, cyborgs, robots. Weird. Cool, but weird. So we'll have to keep our eye on that and keep our eye on Facebook. I think Facebook's down to $1.34 or something like that. It was at $2.15 or $2.17 5 months ago. Maybe less than 5 months ago. Fucking poop. Down the tubular. And I don't think that that's fair. I think it's just a bunch of negative opinion. I don't think it's a reflection of valuation. I don't think it's a reflection of, subscription and use. And usually when the Zuck comes out with his quarterlies or whatnot, there's a bump because they always outperform. With his VR shit or with InstaSnap junk, right? All the subsidiaries he's purchased. Even if the new members and the growth go down, they still seem to be blowing it up. So from my perspective, long term, shit, Facebook's a hold, and maybe even at this cost, a buy. It ain't going anywhere. No. It's gonna be around a long time. And they haven't figured out that real monetization yet, like, Bezos and Amazon or whatever. Because fuck, all he deals with is product, right? $1 trillion worth of shit flowing through his warehouses. Zuckerberg's more of that digital. And he hasn't transitioned yet into whatever that, that real product line is. But he'll get there, dude. Oh, he's a smart fiend. Whew. So I'll stick with the book. We'll see where we go. Yeah, so that's going on. And GE's in the news. GE not doing so well. They're fighting junk bond status. Man, that's crazy. Eeks. General Electric, they were at one time the most valuable company in the United States of America. Huge. They were in every facet of industry. Finance and banking and technology and insurance and healthcare and everything. They were everywhere. You had a GE, one of those logos on anything. And they've all been sold off, and they've downsized and restructured. And all their patents have probably been sold to to competing companies. And yeah, weird. Evolution. The ebb and flow. So that's a disappointment. That's sad. An icon of American industry. Not the first. Won't be the last. But yeah, strange. I don't know what else. Maybe we'll jump back online here in a moment. It seems to be one of the reflections of our time. The freedom of sexuality, the power of the sexes, the diversity of your promiscuity and your partnerships, liberation of that. And all the downsides that go with that, right? Exposure to your children, lack of structure and ethics and morals, and strange when you look at this and you get mixed emotions and what's going on and why is this in the news and who cares and who should care and all those things. Or if it's unimportant or stupid now at all, right? Seems there's always a lot of really important topics that should be in the news. This doesn't seem to be one of them, but I wanted to bring it up. And it seems like in the 70s, maybe when it was the free sex era, right? Woodstock and all that. 60s, 70s probably had more of these stories that were out there. Ebb and the flow of our human sexuality. I don't know if we're ebbing or flowing. I think we're flowing. There's a lot of freedoms. Your transgenders and your sexual reassignments and your freedom to boy erased. But I don't know, maybe there's not a difference to being aware and being outside the norm. That rotten rock and roll causing all these kids to gyrate their hips and be promiscuous. I don't know. But it's a weird world right now. And I wanted to end on this topic after our heady news around the Pope's statements. Consider the last orgy you were at, or you intend to, or plan to attend. Or if you've ever gone to any, and how you feel about that. Safe sex, please. Let's practice good choices. Let's make good choices.